Okay, so today we are going to try, for the next 2 days, we are going to try to do R.L. Stine's writing routine. Now, it's not a complicated one. It's actually a pretty simple one if you ask me. It's not hard, but it's going to be fun. So, R.L. Stine's writing routine is pretty simple. Best things, fun fact about him first before I get into the real nitty gritty. He has written at least 30 books. That's what Google has told me many times. And then when you even Google it and ask again, it doesn't even tell you. But then you go on fan websites and it says, hey, he wrote at least 300 books. So that's a win, you know? But this one, I have a secret project that I am currently working on. It's called Secret Project, Every Breath You Take. That is currently almost done. I figured we're going to do his routine just to speed up the process. I need about 60 pages left and then I'm done with this book, so I'm pretty excited about that. So his writing routine is actually pretty simple. He works, it's like not like some detailed third eye project idea of how he does it. He kind of just like writes and calls it good, but he always sets a goal. So he works from 9 to 3, and between those hours he tries to write at least 2,000 words a day, and I think that's a pretty good goal. And then what he does before he even writes the book, he does an outline just to figure out how to do this whole thing of like, oh, then we don't have writer's block. That defeats writer's block. And that's how he does it. And I'm going to say this is the second author's writing routine that I have done that involves writing outlines. And I'm going to tell you guys now, I despise writing outlines. I hate outlines. And this is just, I think it's just different for every single person. Some people like outlines. I don't. I feel like outlines kind of put you in a box, but that's for a future video I want to talk about sometime. I don't know when. Maybe sometime I will talk about it, but not today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do an outline of another book because this book is not an outline at all, and I'm almost done with it, so I'm like, what's the point of doing an outline? I already know where the story is going, so I'm not going to do an outline. So I'm going to do a chapter outline for another book. I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to write my 2,000 pages for the next 2 days. Today is Saturday. It's about 3 o'clock right now, which I'm way behind on his schedule. But like I said, his goal is to, as long as you hit the 2,000 words in a day, it doesn't really matter. And then another fun fact about him, he goes by the name Bob. I know that has nothing to do with anything to do with like R.L. Stine at all. And it's pretty obvious. Like, I never thought anyone would go up to him and be like, hey, RL. You know, like, no one would go up to him. I just thought it was really funny that his name goes by Bob. So that's what I'm going to do. We're going to get into it, and I can't wait to see where it goes. And I will catch you guys in the next clip or so. Yeah, I don't know. It's been a while since I've done a writing routine. So let's get into it. Alright, so I wrote about 8 pages so far, which is pretty good. Pretty good. I got 2 more pages to go. And I'm feeling pretty good so far. I always like writing these kind of routines. I always think they're fun. I still have to do the outlines, which I will do after. I'm going to let my brain rest after writing these 10 pages, and I will do the outline later today and go from there. I'm actually pretty excited. I enjoy doing this a lot. I do like doing these writing routines. They are just fun to do. So let's get into the outlines. Alright guys, so we are done with R.L. Stine's writing routine for the last 2 days. And I'm just going to give you guys my thoughts about it, and then we're just going to call it a day. So, I'm really 50-50 about this. I never have a problem when you have to like write for like 2,000 pages a day. I don't really mind that. That's usually like my personal goal anyways, is to always try to get there. My weakness when it comes to writing is the outline. I struggle so much writing outlines, and honestly I only get like a page into it and that's about it, because I feel like writing outlines really takes away the imagination. So like that's why I kind of like writers like George R.R. Martin or like Stephen King. Yeah, a lot of people always like hate on good old George because he can't finish a book, but then you can also look at writers who like Stephen King, who doesn't do outlines, and look at all the books he has written and has actually finished series and so on and so forth compared to George. So like I like the Gardner aspect, because to me I feel like when you do those chapter outlines you kind of just stick your characters in a box and you can't really explore, because what if you have a character that goes this way, then you have to find another way to get them back around to the plot of the story that you actually wrote out already. So that's how I always look at it, and that's why I'm not the biggest fan of that element. Now the writing aspect, yeah, I like doing that. Clearly, I like writing. It's fun. But the outline, I understand why R.L. Stine does do it, because he says that helps with writer's block. And to me, I feel like that's a good way to get out of writer's block if you're like sitting there trying to figure out what to do. And if you can't just write a story, that might be the better element to do in general, which I think is perfectly fine. I'm not hating on it, but to me, I just am not a big fan of it. And someone for like myself, I'm not sitting there trying to gloat and say, oh, look at me, I'm the perfect writer, because I know I'm not. But these are just my experiences, my opinions when it comes to these kind of writing routines, and I don't really struggle that much with a writer's block. Honestly, I've never really struggled with it. I just sit down and I'm like, I'm gonna write 5 pages, and I don't leave my desk until I write those 5 pages, or 10, or however many pages I feel like writing for that day. And that's just what I do. I don't do chapter outlines. I did originally when I first got into writing, and did it help? Yeah, a little bit. Mostly it just helped with writing the chapter titles. And that was the weird thing, is like for me, I would write a chapter title and I'm like, all right, so this chapter is what this book is gonna be about. This chapter, I have to write whatever is going on in this chapter and somehow YOLO it through for the rest of it. And that's what I was doing most of the time while I was writing my fantasy series. And it was mostly with the first book. So with the first book, I did that. But after that, I kind of just was like, all right, I know where I have to go. I have to get to point C, and now I establish point A. how are we going to get there? That's what point B is, and we have to extend it and get to point C. And that's why I really like what like Brandon Sanderson has talked about for his writing routines. Well, what he just talked about is you got point A and point C. Point B is just trying to get there. And I think that's perfectly fine too. Like I said, there's just so many ways that people can do writing styles, and I think it's fine for anyone who wants to do whatever you want. I just like trying these out, and I just like seeing how these authors write, and maybe it helps me in the future to be better as a writer myself. But with this one, I think R.L. Stine's is a pretty simple one, honestly. I just don't like chapter outlines, so I didn't write too much as I was hoping I would do, because of that element. Is just like, it makes me feel like I'm in a box. Now, what he was writing compared to what I would be writing is different. He's writing kids' books and teenage books. They're not very long, so maybe for him, the writing was just easier because the plots were not very big, and he's not writing 400-page books. He's writing 100-page books. So maybe that's why. Because then I was reading some of his reports. It took him about 2 weeks to write a Goosebumps book and about 4 weeks to write a Fear Street novel. So it was just interesting to learn that stuff from him. And he also said that he would only write a book depending on what the title is. Once he came up with the title, he would write the whole book about it, which I thought was also a really cool element. But at the end of the day, I did enjoy this. I'm not gonna sit there and say I didn't, because I think it was a really fun routine to do. I just not a big fan of chapter outlines. So every time I do a writer's routine, I see chapter outlines, I'm like, oh gosh. But in the future, I have plenty of other authors I want to do some more routines, and I think I'm gonna do a poll of it in the next following weeks, what you guys want to see. So we'll see what happens from there. If you guys made it to the end of the video, I do appreciate it. Make sure you guys check out all my socials down below, and of course, make sure you guys stay safe, stay humble, and tell someone you love them. I'll see you guys in the next video. Stay weird.